Now, kids, the second part of the story, The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town. The swallow flew towards the lady whose son was ill. He passed by the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball, she said. I have ordered flowers to the embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy. One of the city girl came out with her boyfriend in the balcony. Her dress was prepared by the lady whose son was sick, and she was talking to her friend that the seamstress was very lazy. I don't think she has completed the gown. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the mast of the ships. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. The lady was very tired of doing the embroidery work, so she fell on the bed and asleep. And her son was severely in problem with fever. And in he hoped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy. When the swallow fanned the boy with its wing, the boy felt comfort and he murmured, how I'm feeling cool. I must be getting better. And he sank into delicious slumber. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he remarked. The swallow went back to the happy prince and explained everything he has gone through. But I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold. After doing a good work, the swallow is feeling warm now. That is because you have done a good action, said the prince. The prince assured him that the climatic condition is cold, but you have done a good job, so you are feeling hot. And the little swallow began to think and then fell asleep. Swallow also fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirit at the prospect. Early morning, he had taken a bath and decided to flew towards the Egypt to catch his friends. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on the top of church steeple. When the moon rose, he flew back to Happy Prince. At night, he again came back to the Happy Prince. Have you any commission for Egypt? He cried. I'm just starting. Now I'm moving toward Egypt, he informed the happy prince. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Will you stay with me one night longer? He again requested to the swallow, please stay with me one more night. I am waited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince. Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers, and in the glass by his side there is a bunch of withered violets. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate, and he has large and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he is too cold to write any more. There is no fire in the garret, and hunger has made him faint. Again, the happy prince explained the pitiable condition of a writer. That is, he is trying to finish his novel for the theater, but it is too cold there. There is no arrangement of fire, so he is unable to write. I will wait with you one night longer, said the swallow, who really had a good heart. Now the swallow was impressed with the happy prince. He said, I will stay with you one more night. He asked if he should take another ruby to the young playwright. He again said, go and give another ruby to the playwright. Alas, I have no ruby now, said the prince. And now the prince got the exact position that he lost his ruby. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of red sapphires, which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. Happy Prince said that he don't have ruby now, but his eyes were made by sapphires, and 100 years ago someone brought it from India. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to the playwright, and he will sell it to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play, he said. The happy prince ordered and requested to the swallow to take out one of his eye, which is made of sapphires, and give it to the playwright. Dear prince, said the swallow, I cannot do that. And he began to weep. Taking out of your eye is not possible, so I am unable to do this. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. Now, not the request, is commanding to take out the eye and give it to the playwright. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away to the young man's garret. The swallow has done the same what the happy prince commanded him. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. Through this he darted and came into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wing. And when he looked up to find the beautiful sapphires laying on the withered violets, the roof was broken. The swallow entered the room and put the sapphire in front of the writer. I am beginning to be appreciated, he cried. This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play. And he looked quite happy. The next day, the swallow flew down to the harbor. He sat on the mast of a large vessel and watched the sailors working. I'm going to Egypt, cried the swallow, but nobody minded. And when the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince. Next morning, he again tried to go to Egypt. He sat on the ship, but he was unable to move and came back again to the happy prince at night. I have come to bid you goodbye, he cried. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you not stay with me one night longer? Again the happy prince requests the swallow to stay with him one next night. It is winter, answered the swallow, and the snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm on the green palm trees, and the crocodiles lie in the mud and look lazily about them. Swallow explained that this is the winter time, so I have to go. In the square below, said the happy prince, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter, and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and she is crying. She has no shoes or stockings, and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her, and her father will not beat her. Next is the pitiable condition of a girl who has to earn some money and give it to her father. But the swallow is not ready to pluck out another eye and give it to the girl. I will stay with you one night longer, said the swallow, but I cannot pluck out your eye. You would be quite blind then. According to the swallow, if he plucks out the other eye, the happy prince will become the blind. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. He said, please obey my command. So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it. The swallow plucked out the other eye of the prince and went to the little girl. He swooped past the match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. He placed the palm. He placed the sapiers in the palm of the little girl. What a lovely bit of glass, cried the little girl, and she ran home laughing. The girl was very delighted. She returned back to her home. Then the swallow came back to the prince. You are blind now, he said, so I will stay with you always. The swallow felt pity to the happy prince. He said, now you are unable to see anything, so I will live with you forever. No, little swallow, said the poor prince, you must go away to Egypt. You are planning to go to Egypt. Your friends have gone there, so you have to go. No, I will stay with you always. And the swallow and he slept at the prince's feet. All the next day, he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in strange land. Dear little swallow, said the prince, you tell me a marvelous thing, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and women. While the swallow was explaining the beauty of the city, then the happy prince said, you explain everything, but you haven't explained the suffering, the sadness of the people. There is no mystery so great as misery. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there. The city is full of mice. So go there and explain me what you have found there. So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses while the beggars were sitting at the gates. He flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge, two little boys were laying in each other's arms to try and keep themselves warm. These are the pitiable condition of the city dwellers. They have no wealth to purchase, no food to eat, and they are suffering the cold. How hungry we are, they said. You must not lie here, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into the rain. The two young boys were shivering with cold. The watchman threw them out, and they came out in the rain in the cold winter. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. All this melted the heart of the swallow. It flew back to the prince and explained everything he had seen. I am covered with fine gold, said the prince. You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to the poor. The living always think that gold can make them happy. Now the happy prince ordered the swallow to take out the gold leaves and distribute it among the city dwellers. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf, the happy prince was plucking and giving it to swallow. Fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played in the street. We have bread now, they cried. With the fine, thin up pieces of gold, they can purchase their food, clothing, etc. So the boys were very happy. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. The streets looked as if they were made of silver. Everybody went about in fur, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skates on the ice. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. The swallow followed the command of the happy prince and gave all the lips, golden lips, to the city dwellers, but he himself was in too cold, and he was trying to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. But at last he knew that he was going to die. He had just enough strength to fly up to Prince's shoulder once more. Goodbye, dear Prince, he murmured. Will you let me kiss your hand? Now the condition of the swallow is worst. He was unable to move, but he flew to the shoulder of the happy prince and said, Goodbye, Prince. I am glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little swallow, said the prince. You have stayed too long here, but you must kiss me on the lips, for I love you. It is not to Egypt that I am going, said the swallow. I am going to the house of death. The prince thought that the swallow was going towards Egypt, but it was his last journey. He said, "Not Egypt, I'm going to the heaven." At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue as if something had broken. The fact is that the leaden heart and the snapped right in two. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below, in the company with the town councillor. As they passed the column, he looked up at the statue. "Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks," he said. Both the swallow and the happy prince ends their life and death. The statue was bare now. The councillor and the mayor found it looks like a shabby prince. "How shabby indeed," cried the town councillor, who always agreed with the mayor, and they went up to look at it. "The ruby has fallen out of his sword, his eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer," said the mayor. "In fact, he is little better than a beggar." The mayor said to the councillor that the happy prince doesn't have the ruby, sapphires, or the golden lips. Instead of it, the happy prince is now looking like a beggar. "Little better than a beggar," said the town councillor. "And here is actual a dead bird at his feet," continued the mayor. "We must really issue a proclamation that birds are not to be allowed to die here." And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion. So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince, as he is no longer beautiful, as he is no longer useful, said the art professor at the university. Then they melted the statue in the furnace. The end of the statue, it was taken down and melted in the furnace. "What a strange thing," said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. "This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away." So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. They melted the statue, but the heart remains as it was. So they threw it on the dust heap, and the dead swallow was laying there. "Bring me the two most precious things in the city," said God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. One day, God said to his angel that go to the earth and bring two very beautiful things. The angel brought the leaden heart and the dead bird's body to the God. "You have rightly chosen," said God, "for in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing forever more, and in my city of gold the happy prince shall praise me." The God was very happy, very delighted with this act, and he kept in the heaven both the thing, the dead part of the swallow and the leaden heart of the happy prince. This was the story written by Oscar Wilde. Thank you.